The next book then just goes on to different types of aspects, such as the craft that they use, about the different guides that come to the group. There's a history of some of the extraterrestrials that we work with. They talk about different races, reincarnation, breathing and the value of breathing and how it works. They talk about their social structures. Atlantis as well, they discuss that as well on a few pages. And they talk about spirit teams and guides. The books are basically designed so that people can start to manifest those levels of communication in their own lives. They're not a step-by-step guide, but it gives people an understanding of, if I don't have this happening in my life, what could I possibly do to make it happen? Whereas a lot of people do have communication, and a lot of people would probably say, well, I'm past that. I'm already working with, angels, higher guides, beings, those sorts of things. It's an interesting book, obviously, but the information is specifically for people who are looking to understand what the extraterrestrials are trying to say, because what is being said by a lot of people about the extraterrestrials is very negative, and they want to come through as being or showing what their true agenda is in regards to why they would bother to even come to a planet and work with humans, when they themselves most times are considered to only have a agenda that is negative.
Yeah, because this is obviously being caused by the main media and the spin and the movie industry, who are basically in the game of profiteering from people's fears, and they've taken this stance of entertainment. And we all know it. We've been, ever since the movie industry began, it seems to, well, initially when it began in I think it started around 1920, somewhere around about there, when this first cinema came out. But I believe TV first started around about the Second World War, because from what I understand, during the war, the original TVs that came out were valves, and they had very leaky capacitors, and the war started, and the government wanted to control information even then, and feed the enemy with propaganda and false information. So they shut the television networks down over the period of the war, and after the war the televisions were all faulty because the capacitors had leaked out everywhere, and lots of people had to get the TVs repaired because they were so crude back then. Well, it just goes to show that we've always lived in what I'm getting at, the point I'm making here, is that we've always, as far back as you can really think, we've all been in this state of media manipulation and spin. Most of what we see on the main media is an exaggeration or distortion of what's really going on. So it's there's no wonder that we have generations of people who have fears about things which have been misrepresented. So we can pretty much say that if we're told something and it's scary, we should basically turn black white and white black, because that's my impression. I've had messages from Ostara, my guide, and she's told me that we all need to start recognising that black is white and white is black as regards most of what we're told by the main media, because a lot of it is being exaggerated or distorted. Whereas the ETs are actually truth. They want to tell us the truth, and they're trying to come through, and it's a bit like us trying to communicate with a hamster, I suppose. Now there's other people that are talking about ETs living on nearby planets in our solar system. I know I want to cover all your books, so I'm going to ask about your second book in a little while, but I just wanted to ask about whether or not you're aware of any ET bases in our solar system, and whether or not these beings are being threatened or attacked or anything by the human population or the military. Um, so I mean, I'm not trying to drown you in questions, but I'm just trying to get a grasp of all the kinds of questions that people might be asking.
I think it's really important to remember that there are multiple races of extraterrestrials. So far, coming to our group, there would have been about 6 to 8 different races. Those races have, some of them have come and spoke at length, and others haven't. So the point is, if there's 100 people on the planet, what you would hope would be that those 100 people would be contacted by different races, rather than one race all talking to the 100 people. What that gives the people on the planet is perspective, and that diversity also gives them an understanding of the greater universe around them, and the fact that we as human beings are of a universal nature, and that we also belong to a universal citizenship. Yes, of course, there are energies living on other planets, other beings, but we have to try to think outside of those parameters. We have to understand that we also have etheric planets around us, not just physical planets. We have to understand that we have multiple dimensions that we move through and exist through as well. And there are beings that live in those dimensional realms. Quite often people will see something out the corner of their eye, or they will get a sense or a feeling about something, and they'll feel that there's somebody with them. Just because they sense that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist in a three-dimensional aspect. So what we have to try to do is open our minds so that the communication processes that we have become expanded, and so that when we are communicating, we're communicating with a wide range of beings, because just limiting our communication to beings that are currently existing in our universe or our solar system or our galaxy means that we're discounting the fact that there are other beings, energy beings, interdimensional beings, that also desire communication as well.
Yeah, I agree with you actually, because myself, I've done a few meditations, and there's a group of us that come on here on Alternative Minds, and we have done some remote viewing, and well, I'm not that experienced with remote viewing actually, because it's kind of a bit random sometimes, because there's been times when I've actually looked backwards in time. I've actually seen a time in the past, so you have to kind of, it's not just the coordinates, it's a time as well, and it's all to do with frequency. I've noticed myself that when I'm doing these meditations, I seem to be drawn mostly to a crystalline world. That seems to be the place I see the most. It seems like I'm seeing a crystalline planet with towers of crystal and cities of crystal, almost like glass. And I've been given the guidance that this is another dimension. It feels completely different, and it's so peaceful. There's hardly any movement on the planet in the physical sense, but there's such a lot of information moving around. Have you come across anything like that?